Okay, we got everybody for now. So welcome everyone. It's so exciting to have you all here with me today. My name is Katie Lipp. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Director of Health Professions Advising here at Mount Holyoke. I'm super excited to meet you in the fall, but for now, we get a little bit of a chance to connect here in Zoom. Um, I want to just mention a couple of technical things. I am recording this, and I have my video pinned so that folks can see me, and it'll turn up on the recording. There is an automatic transcript that is happening. Hopefully, you're seeing that on your end, and I'm still letting people in. I am going to do a little bit of overview of health professions advising in Mount Holyoke, talk about some resources, share some information, and I'm going to do Q&A at the end. The way that we're going to do that is there is a chat function. So if you sort of go to towards the bottom of your screen, your Zoom tools should appear. One of them is a little chat symbol. You can use that chat function. Someone already popped in, which is great. You can use that chat function to ask any questions that you want. Please feel free to put questions in at any time. You don't have to put the questions in at the end. In fact, it's great if you put them in the moment that you have them. And then when we get to that point, I'll just be able to go and see your questions. When we get to the Q&A, you're also welcome to ask a question auditorily. If you prefer to do that, what I ask is, again, with those Zoom tools at the bottom of the screen, when we get to that point, if you want to use the raise hand function, it will raise a Zoom hand and I'll be able to see that and call on you, and you can unmute and ask your question that way. So both chat and the raise hand function for actually asking questions verbally are both good tools for that. Right now, while I jump into sharing a little bit, I would love to invite folks, and this can be a sort of test out the chat function opportunity. I would love to invite you to just pop into the chat and introduce yourselves. You can say hello, what name you'd like to go by, pronouns if you want to share them, and where you're from, if there's particular health profession or professions that you're curious about. I love to get a sense of who you are, but it's also an opportunity to be introducing yourselves to each other. There's a pretty good chance that a lot of you who are on here right now are going to end up in some classes together. They'll be each other will be people who you are likely to get to know. So again, I invite you to pop into the chat to do that. And in the meantime, I'm going to get started. So like I said, I'm Katie Lipp, and I'll tell you a little bit about health professions advising, first of all, in terms of who you're likely to connect with. So there are two full-time staff in our office. There's me, that's me on the left there, as you can probably tell since you can also see me on the video. But on the right, is my colleague Jackie. So Jackie is the coordinator of our office. She keeps everything well organized. She is the person who manages the logistics of my appointments, so sort of manages the calendaring. She does appointment confirmations when we're doing virtual appointments. She sends out the Zoom links. And when we have in-person appointments, which is most of them, when you come in for an appointment, you'll actually see Jackie first. You go and kind of wait in her office. You can chat with Jackie a little bit, and then I come and find you. And so you will get to know Jackie as well. She was not able to be on this call, but certainly once you're on campus, you'll be able to meet her. We also have a student assistant who works in our office. So this is Maria. She is a rising junior. She's been working with us for the last year and a half or so. And she does a lot of things behind the scenes, but her primary role is to send out some weekly emails with information about events as well as jobs and internships. And so that is all Maria's work. So you will absolutely be able to at least see her work. And I'm sure at some points you will meet her as well, but she's also a really critical component of our office. She also manages our Instagram page. On the last slide, I'll have some information about different ways you can connect with us, but Instagram is one of them. And if you ever wanted to connect with Maria directly, you can always direct message on Instagram. I find that that's often the easiest way to remember. You can also email her at our peer advisor email address, but that's a little harder to remember. So direct message on Instagram is often a really easy way to reach her. Okay, so how do we support students, especially students who are brand new to the college? So we're available to anybody, right? And this is probably the top line thing that I always want to make sure that people know is that we will connect with you, support you at whatever point you're at in your process. So in other words, you don't have to know 100% what you want to do. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be your very first semester, although we encourage you to connect in your first semester. But there's no time that's too late, and it can just be like, I'm curious about this and I want to know more. That's plenty, right? Just you wanting to connect. There's no other requirements for you to be able to connect with us and get support from our office. Once we know who you are, right, that you've expressed at least some degree of interest in pre-health, we'll add you to our mailing list, so you'll get information from us. You can come off it at any time if that's not your thing. But if you're interested, we'll add you. And I mentioned Instagram already. Moving forward in time, once you're on campus, at the very end of orientation, there's a thing called the academic fair. There's tables set up with people from all the academic departments and programs, and some additional offices from across campus. We are there. We see a lot of incoming students at that academic fair. It's a great chance to stop by, check in, say hi. Make sure you are on our mailing list. Ask questions if you need to before classes begin. So please come by and say hello. That may be the first time that you're actually meeting me and Jackie, and hopefully Maria if she's able to be there in person. And within the first 2 weeks of classes, we have an event that is sort of our kickoff welcome event. It's called Health Professions 101. We advertise that through our mailing list as well as through flyers, and it's on the college's main calendar as well. So we'll get the word out about that through many different ways, but we would love to see you there. It's an interactive event. You're going to get to meet some other people from across campus. And so, like I said, that's within the first 2 weeks of classes. And then you can, I have to just say, I'm laughing because my transcript is over the words that I want to say. So now I'm going to move it so that I can actually see my own notes. Make sure I don't forget anything. And you can make an initial advising appointment with me at any time. So I'm going to skip ahead. I might have info on this. Nope, I'm going to back up one sec. We once you're on campus, we make advising appointments through a platform, a piece of software called Handshake. New students are added to Handshake at the very end of the summer. So as of right now, you cannot yet access Handshake. If you want or need to meet with me over the summer, and next week, actually, I have a lot of time set aside for new students because you're registering soon after that for your classes. So if you want or need to meet with me during the summer, you can just email pre-health@mtholyoke.edu. Again, that will be on my last slide. And we'll get you set up with an appointment. But once you're on campus, you're going to use this platform called Handshake. And again, you can make an appointment at any time that works for you. I see lots of people popped into the chat, which is great. And like I said, we'll do Q&A at the end. And so I'll turn to that after I get through some of the info. So since we're talking about advising, I wanted to take a minute just to sort of clarify and distinguish between pre-health advising versus faculty advising, because there's often a lot of confusion around sort of what my role is and what I can help you with versus what the role of your faculty advisor is and what they can help you with. There's a lot of overlap, but there are some distinctions. So these two columns sort of share that. So on the pre-health side, I already mentioned that, anyone can come and see us. That includes alums as well. So I'm still the pre-health advisor for many alums who are still working with us right now as they're preparing their applications for health profession schools. And you don't have to declare anything. You don't have to submit any form. I am your pre-health advisor if you're interested in pre-health, and it's as simple as that. It's not a major, it's not a minor. It's simply your interest and us supporting that interest as you're working your way towards an eventual application to health profession school. Appointments aren't required. So I'm here. You can make appointments with me, but you're never going to be assigned to an appointment or required to have an appointment. It really is on you to decide, okay, I'm going to make an appointment to meet with Katie. Um, and my particular advising expertise is in the academic and non-academic preparations for health profession career exploration and a future application to health profession programs. So while I do a lot of academic advising with students, it's all from this perspective and context of preparing for health profession schools. Now, faculty advising, you will be assigned a faculty advisor at some point over the course of the summer. Dean Parent is not on the Zoom right now. And she could clarify when that happens. I don't remember off the top of my head. But you will be assigned a faculty advisor. So you always have at least one person who is sort of your assigned and matched faculty advisor throughout the whole time that you're at Mount Holyoke. Your first advisor who you're assigned to may or may not be in the academic discipline that you're eventually going to major in. And so when you declare a major, if the advisor that you had was not in the discipline that you actually are declaring a major in, you will change advisors. There's other opportunities to change advisors if you need to, but that's a key time when a lot of people are needing to make that change. So your first advisor is there to support you, there to help you with the adjustment to college and academic advising, but may or may not, like I said, be in your future major field. And at least 2 appointments each year are going to be required with that person, and that's before you register for classes for the next semester. So that's a difference between me and faculty advisors as well. And then their expertise is going to be in academic planning, specifically for meeting college graduation requirements, and then also in the major or minor, sorry, major and minor for their department. So you can see there's overlaps, right? Especially in the fact that we're both doing academic advising, but we are going to have different sort of structures and particular ways in which we're supporting students. Okay, so you're here. That's awesome. There's 40 of you on the Zoom, which is absolutely amazing. So, part of the answer to what you should do right now to prepare for pre-health is you're here, and that's incredible. So go you, check that, off your list. That's fantastic. But there are some other things that I can certainly recommend. So visiting our website, if you want to just get a sense of like where it is and what's there, what the resources are that are available. I know that most of the time folks are probably not just sort of sitting down and perusing websites, but on the other hand, if you want to just scroll through the menu and get a sense of like what are the different things that are here, then in the future when you have questions or you're looking for resources, they may be a little easier to find. So visiting the website, we've got a lot of information and resources that are there. Signing up for our mailing list, I will tell you because you're here now, we'll put you on the mailing list. So we'll make sure that you get connected in that way. We don't send a lot out over the summer, periodic things, but it ramps up starting in August. And then I mentioned Handshake, right? That software for making appointments. So once you get access to Handshake, which will be sometime in August, but I don't know precisely when, you can join the health professions career community, which is a setting within Handshake. I'm not going to give you specifics right now of how to do that. It's early. That is nothing you need to know about in the moment, and it's a quick and easy thing to do at any point once you have that Handshake access. So in the fall, once you're on campus, I mentioned that event, right? So we would love to see you there. We'll share details a little bit later when we have all of that put together. And other things that I encourage new pre-health students to do, a bunch of it is just related to starting college. I know some of you might be transfer students, but especially if you're brand new to college, but even as a transfer student, you're new to Mount Holyoke, explore new things, challenge yourself, right? One of the things I'll mention on another slide is like, if certain things are hard for you, don't wait to sort of increase your skills in that area, but really start working on it earlier rather than later. Building your study skills, really important if you want to go into the health professions. It's challenging, right? Like there's a lot of classes to take. There's going to be some difficult classes. So making sure that those study skills, those college level study skills are really, really solid. The beginning is the time to really focus on that. Follow your passions, do things you're excited about. Go to the oh, I'm forgetting the name of it now. I'm sorry. The Involvement Fair, which is a student fair. I think it's the first full weekend after classes begin, where all the student orgs and some other campus offices are there, and you can, learn about different things that are available, sign up for things. So follow what your passions, the things you're excited about, and meet with me. We do encourage everyone who's interested in pre-health to make at least one appointment in the fall semester. And so that's a great time to get connected face to face. Right. Classes are often a really big question. And again, I haven't looked at the chat yet. I will very soon, but I expect that there will probably be some questions about classes. That's usually something I can anticipate. So let's get into that a little bit, talking about classes, because you're going to start registering in just a couple of weeks. Um, okay, so here are some things to think about as a pre-health student. And I will say, when I say as a pre-health student, you may or may not fully define yourself that way right now, right? Like you may just be interested, curious, not really sure. That's fine. This information is still for you because if you are someone who's like, well, I'm kind of exploring, but I want to, start to think about what these classes are going to be, great. That's, this is the info for you. And same thing if you're like, no, I know 100% exactly what I want to do. Here is my plan. Tell me exactly what to take. This information is also for you. So, first of all, just generally, obviously know about distribution requirements, right? That's something that you're going to get information on in writing. You're going to get information from your class dean, from your faculty advisor, but just know what the distribution requirements are. You're going to hear a lot of general advice about working on really getting those requirements complete in your first year. I agree with that advice. I think that's a great idea. Um, Reflect on your prior preparation for courses you're thinking about. So, what did you do in high school? What classes did you take? What are your areas of particular strength? What are areas that you find more challenging? Really, just sort of think about what's going to be the right next steps for you in a variety of different academic areas. And then also thinking about your academic interests, which may or may not be the same as areas that you did particularly well in high school. But what are the things that you're really excited about? That could mean, a major or a minor, but it could be other academic goals. It could just be, I've always wanted to take a drawing class and I've never had the opportunity. That's on my, academic bucket list for college. So whatever those interests and goals are, challenge yourself also to look into areas that are maybe not initially on your radar screen. So I will tell you, side note to what's on the slide here, one of the things that I do before course registration time every semester is I literally go through the entire catalog of classes that are being offered the following semester. And that is so that I can put together a document to help pre-health students. It's not for, my own taking classes, but I am literally looking at every single class that is being offered at the college in the upcoming semester. And it's really fascinating to see the things that are being offered across campus in areas that you might not have initially thought of. For example, our philosophy department has several classes that are connected to health and science. Our anthropology department has a lot of health related classes, gender studies, geology, and you don't only have to be looking for health related classes, but I mention those because those are the ones that I notice from where I sit as the pre-health advisor. That, geology, did I say geology? I'm sorry, I meant environmental studies. I did say geology. Environmental studies was the department I meant though. Environmental studies is not the first academic discipline that comes to everybody's mind when they think about human or animal health. For some people, maybe it is, right? But not for everybody. But there are several courses there. So look broadly, be creative, be bold, and explore. And then think about obviously what are your career interests. And if you're not sure, or if you're interested in several different careers and you're not quite sure what that means in terms of how to figure out classes, that's a great opportunity for us to connect directly, either over email or in an appointment next week. or right now if you want to pop questions into the chat. So all of the above. So there's some resources. I'm going to click over to them in just a second so that you can actually see these. Hopefully some of you already have. But there is a page on our website called the Guide for New Students. It specifically is about, it should probably accurately say academic guide, but it's specifically about choosing classes for your very first semester at Mount Holyoke. Once you're through, you will no longer need that page, but that's what that page is for. We also have a page on the website that lists prerequisite courses for I forget how many now, 11 or 12 different health professions, and sort of outlines how you can complete those prerequisites at Mount Holyoke. So that's another resource on our website. And I've mentioned several times now these three ways that you can also sort of ask more specific questions, right? So right now, email me, make an appointment for next week, which you can also do by sending a message to that same email. And then this is just a big question that I get a lot, and so I wanted to give it its own slide here. Either one or two lab science courses, if you're planning on taking any at all. Some of you might not take one, but this particular question is one I get a lot. Either one is okay. There are different ways to sort of go through this pathway of prerequisite courses for health professions. That page, the Guide for New Students, kind of walks you through options. But most importantly is actually getting back to a couple of the beginning things I said about how to prepare for academics and plan out your classes, is this thinking about and reflecting on where you are as a student right now, right? What you've already taken, what's going to be the first semester schedule that works best for you. I do encourage people two things. One, perhaps plan for your first semester. How do I want to phrase this? Don't plan a semester that seems extra challenging, right? Because you're already going to have extra challenges by being a new student at Mount Holyoke. And so you want to make sure that the academics feel, challenging in a good way, right? Like interesting, fun, definitely not boring stuff that you've already studied. But I didn't mean to imply that stuff you already studied was boring. I mean that it could be boring to study it again. Um, but you also don't want a first semester that is so challenging that it's sort of more than what is a good fit when you're also adjusting to college life and life at Mount Holyoke. So find the schedule that works best for you. So let me pop really quickly over to the website, show you that, and then I'm going to take a look at the chat and we'll jump right into questions. And I will remind everyone, if you are more comfortable asking your question out loud, or it just feels like it's going to work better to do it that way, there is this raise hand function. If you sort of scroll to the bottom of your screen, you should see your Zoom tools open up and there's a little hand. If you click on that, that raises your hand. So here's the Guide for New Students. So this is our website. First of all, you can see that menu over on the left-hand side. There's a lot in there. Right now, I'm just showing you this page because of course registration coming up. So the Guide for New Students, I'm not going to walk you through the whole thing, but the Guide for New Students, we've got some overview information, which is basically what I just talked through. And then there's these three accordion paragraphs. So one of them, sorry, I just heard a Zoom noise and in my ear, and I'm making sure that it's all still good. It is okay. So the first accordion paragraph says for clinical professions. So the sort of the way that I'm defining this is clinical profession is one where you would be directly treating your individual patients. So professions that might fall in that category would be doctor, nurse, physician assistant, veterinarian, dentist, occupational therapist, physical therapist, athletic trainer, pharmacist. I could go on and on. Optometrist, podiatrist, right? So all of those are professions where you are directly treating your patients. The next one for public health or non-clinical careers are sort of all the other health professions where you're not directly treating patients. So public health is looking at health from a community or population level perspective, right? You're looking at the health of a community as opposed to the individual sitting in front of you. Other non-clinical careers might be something like health administration, for example. And so you're going to have information if kind of that's your area of interest, you want to open that accordion paragraph. And then the last one, general tips and resources, some of which I already talked through. So just to really quickly open this and show you how it works, it's literally in steps, right? Step one, step two, step three, and then down here after a little bit, step four. So step three, you can see, is the one where there's really a lot of choices that we're sort of walking you through. So you'll need to think about what your interests are, read through that information, obviously follow up with me if you have questions about that.
But we couldn't see anything.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I thank you for saying that. I thought that I had this set so that you could. Let me fix that so that you can see what I'm talking about. I can see why now you weren't seeing it. I've just found the error. Thank you, brave person, for speaking up. I didn't see who told me that. Okay, I think everyone should be able to see it now. Um, I'm not gonna, talk through everything that I just said because you got the audio and the transcript of it, but basically here's what it looks like, right? This is the website, and I was referencing these three accordion paragraphs. There they are. So these are just three sections that you can click open and get more information through those. So again, apologies. I'm going to pop back over to the slides so that I can leave up this slide for a couple of minutes so that you all can see the ways that you can connect. I will also, maybe towards the end, because I don't want it to get too lost in with other questions in the chat, but I will pop some of this into the chat. But I'm going to open up the chat for me right now and see what we've got here for questions. Okay, lots of great introductions. Great. Thank you all for sort of answering each other's questions. This is wonderful. That's so fantastic. You're talking about first year seminars, it looks like. You can tell I'm scrolling through your questions. Yay for chatting in the chat. Okay. All right. So here's a question. How does AP credit play into which classes you should register for, specifically AP biology and chemistry? Yeah, and thanks. Someone else was answering that as well, but I am gonna address that. So yeah, it's a really good question. I see some people sort of talking about information you've gotten elsewhere about biology and chemistry. The short answer is, as I'm seeing some of these replies saying that you should be planning on starting with the 100 levels with AP Bio and Chem. So, sorry, with our curriculum, even if you've done AP Bio and Chem. So for biology, that's Biology 145. For chemistry, it's Chem 150, or the integrated course that you may have already seen, which is Biology and Chemistry 160. It's integrated because you have to take both of those. You can't take just one of the 160s, and they have an integrated lab. So it's one lab for that 160 integrated course rather than two labs. Now, I am not in the biology department. I'm not in the chemistry department. And so I can't speak for them. But I will say if you have, let's say, taken biology or chemistry classes at another college, right, or done some other advanced level work, it is absolutely worth reaching out to the departments to just clarify your particular circumstance, especially because the biology department just recently made a change to their curriculum that is going into effect this coming fall. And so I think just double checking things is a good idea, particularly again, because since I'm not in the biology department, I can't speak to any nuances or exceptions that might exist. Will the recording and slides be posted? Yes, I will make sure that you are able to get access to those. I will need to coordinate that with Dean Parent, so I can't tell you specifically Where or how you'll find them, I think probably I can email them to you all directly since you registered, and so I've got your contact info. But we'll make sure, yes, that you get both the recording and the slides. Okay, is it recommended to take Calculus 1 or statistics in your freshman year first semester? Great question. So I'm going to say something broader than that question first and then get to the question specifically. So I do encourage people to take calculus and or statistics early. Um, in part depending on your health profession of interest. So there's when we talk about health professions, it's so broad. I mean, when I was listing professions earlier to give those examples, I listed probably 12 different things, and that's just a tiny fraction of what exists as far as what health professions are. And so there's going to be exceptions to what I'm saying right now. But for many of, especially those clinical health professions, and I would say 100% for the ones that require a lot of STEM classes, lots of biology, lots of chemistry, I do encourage people to take math and or stats early. There's a couple of reasons for that. One is I do meet with a lot of students who say that they're really excited about something like biology, but not as excited about math. This falls into that category of like, tackle it early. Do it. Your high school math is fresher in your head right now anyway. But also because if you are going to be doing all of those STEM classes, a really strong quantitative foundation, even if it's not technically speaking a prerequisite for the classes you're taking, it's helpful. It's really helpful. It's also really helpful for health profession schools and potentially entrance exams, depending on what profession you might go into and whether an entrance exam is required. To the question specifically, is it recommended to take in your first semester, right, calc or stats? What I would say is that really depends on a whole variety of factors. First of all, maybe it's not your first semester. That's one piece, like maybe it's your second semester. It also depends on what the rest of your schedule looks like. It depends on your personal interests. That's a very important, relevant factor. It depends on what else you might want to take in the future and if either of those are prerequisites for that. Um, One side note on stats, particularly, the psychology and neuroscience majors require statistics, and the statistics that they require basically can't be taken in your first semester. And so, if you're interested in one of those two majors and you're not interested in pursuing a lot of statistics, you probably want to wait on that one anyway. What's the recommended pre-med sequence at Mount Holyoke? Do students take chem first or bio first? Which one would be easier to start with? I'm planning on majoring in psychology. Okay, great. And thank you for telling me your major interest because that's a really important factor in thinking about questions like this. So when I meet with people who want to talk about their classes, those questions of what are your health profession interests and what are majors that you're considering are two of the earliest things I'm going to ask you. The third one is going to be about your high school academic background. Um, this person said that they're planning on majoring in psychology. If you don't know what you're going to major in, that's totally fine. You're going to a liberal arts college. You do not have to know what you're majoring in right now, and it's great to explore. But if there's areas that you know you're interested in, when I'm advising you on academics, I'm going to take that into account. So do you take bio first or chem first, and which one would be easier to start with? What you will see, if you at any point, doesn't have to be right now, but if you pop over to that guide for new students, what you will see is that we're outlining 6 different options for how you could choose to start with biology and or chemistry. Um, One of those options is both. One of those options is only one. One of those options is only the other. We also include an introductory neuroscience class, and so I explain that to say that either is okay or any, all of the above. It's just different pathways. But if you're majoring in psychology, for example, I think what I just said is true. It's pretty flexible. Take what feels best for you. One is not necessarily easier than the other to start with because, again, that's kind of individualized um, in terms of what your personal academic background is and what you're really excited about. The other thing to know is if you are really interested in a biochemistry major or a math major or a physics major, that may change some of this as well, right? So it'll vary by person. I hope that helps to answer the question from that individual person, but feel free to follow up. Which intro STEM classes are known to be especially demanding? Which intro STEM classes? I mean, I think when I intro in my definition is the 100 level classes. From what I hear from students, I probably hear more students finding chemistry more challenging than the 100 level biology, neuroscience, math, um, physics. But there's none of the 100 level classes are ones that people come to me like in agony because it feels so hard, if that makes sense, right? I mean, they're all designed to be accessible for everybody who's coming in and potentially doing it for the first time. If we take the integrated course, do we have to take the two classes separately as well? No, great question. No, it's one or the other. So I mentioned this integrated biology chemistry 160, right? If you take that, it's not only that you don't have to take the others, you can't take the others. They are equivalent classes, they're just structured differently. So if you're starting off with introductory courses in biology and chemistry, at some point, you are either going to do Bio 145 and Chem 150, or you're going to do Bio 160 and Chem 160, and you're not going to mix and match and do both. Good question. Let me add one other clarifying piece. For health profession schools that require biology and chemistry courses with labs, and I mentioned that this integrated course has also one single integrated lab rather than two separate labs, that will still count as two separate labs for the purposes of health profession schools, just so you know. So your experience of it will be different because it's one integrated lab, but as far as prerequisites for health professions, it counts as two. Will you be posting the class list you were talking about earlier, like the one that has all the classes that could be good for pre-health? Yes. So again, on that, and I know these questions, some of them were asked before I started showing things, but um, the um, the guide for new students, when you open all those accordion sections that unfortunately you didn't see because I had my sharing wrong, there are some specific lists of classes like these biology and chemistry classes we're talking about. But then also it includes a lists of some additional classes that are basically like, hey, here are other classes that are maybe health related or might be prerequisites for certain professions. And then there's also the whole prerequisites page that lists all of the prerequisite classes by profession. So all of those things are on both of those pages. Okay, I'm interested in let me do two things. I want to do a time check and a question check. There's so many questions here. Um, and I'm not sure that I will get to all of them. I'm so glad you all are asking these great questions. Um, Sorry, no, that won't work. I'm just trying to organize questions here. All right, I'm going to start to skip around a little bit just to find some questions that are different from questions that I've already answered. When is a good time to take physics from someone who wants to major in biochemistry? Okay, so I'm going to answer this also for people who might want to major in, let's say, physics or something else that's very um, more on the, I mean, biochem is pretty quantitative heavy, but that's more like physics, math, stats sort of majors. So I'll give both answers. So for someone who wants to major in biochemistry, you're probably not going to take physics until at least your junior year, just because the biochem major in particular, it's a very credit heavy major, and there's a lot of sequencing. You have to take this biology class and this chemistry class and this calculus class in order to move into the next ones. So people who already know that they're interested in biochemistry, you're almost certainly going to start with biology, chemistry, math, and so physics just has to come later because it doesn't fit earlier. But for people who either are, let's say you want to major in a non-STEM field, right? And so all of these STEM classes for health professions don't actually relate to your major. Side note, you can major in anything and go into the health professions. Just FYI. Um, so if that's the case, you could take physics this fall if you want to. That would totally work. You can basically take it anytime. Not all health professions require physics, so go to that prerequisite courses page it's on our website, and check the profession that you think you're interested in. If it doesn't appear there, ask me. I'm happy to help. But see whether or not physics is going to be required. Maybe it's not. If you're interested in majoring in physics, or math or something else that is similar. If you want to, do something with engineering, we don't have an engineering major, but physics certainly, if you're interested in engineering or biomedical engineering, physics is going to be an important thing. Then maybe again you want to take it earlier. Let me also do a side note on physics here. We have two sets of physics classes. There's a sorry, we have two sets of introductory physics classes. So, what we might call general physics, two course sequences. There's a pair of courses that is a general physics class that does not use calculus. So, you do not have to have taken calculus to take that particular pair of physics courses. There's also a pair of general physics courses that do require calculus. The first semester requires Calc 1, the second semester requires Calc 2. Those courses, the calculus-based physics classes, are required for the physics major. For health professions, you can take either. And it's also a personal choice, right? If you're only taking it for health professions, not for a physics major, you could take the calc-based physics because you love math, because you love physics, because you've already done a lot of physics and you want a greater challenge, because if it's better in your schedule, there's lots of reasons why people might choose that. So either one is okay. What advice would you give someone whose high school was very small and did not have many classes available? So that's another great question, and I would invite you to email me directly and or make an appointment, and we can talk more specifically about you as an individual. But what I would say is really, I think, kind of the same as that general advice of think about your own academic background, so that when you take this next step of registering for courses at Mount Holyoke, you're finding the courses that you feel are going to be the right entry for you into college classes. But beyond that, I think I would want to talk to you more individually. What is the best way to manage course load? Oh wow, I have thoughts on this, but I also wish that I had like a senior student here with me who could tell you from that student perspective. Here's what I would say from my advising perspective, though, about managing course load. So I did mention, when you think about your first semester, try not to aim for a semester that looks really full. By the way, let me be more specific about that. I know in every high school is structured a little differently, right? But there's a lot of high schools where you might be taking 7 or even 8 classes at the same time. That is not true in, I think it's safe to say, most colleges, at least not what I'm familiar with, and definitely not at Mount Holyoke. Potentially, if you count like a 1 credit music class and a PE class and maybe a 1 credit independent study, like maybe then yes, you're up to technically 7 classes. But when I talk about number of classes, I'm talking about your main core academic courses that are typically 4 credit classes, right? For those, a full course schedule is 4 classes, right? So 4 classes at 4 credits each, 16 credits. The other thing to know about structuring your classes for managing the course load is we do not recommend more than 2 labs per semester. So I had that question that I posed on a slide earlier. Should I start with 1 or 2 labs? But I do not recommend 3. And that's in general. That's even in future semesters because the labs take up a lot of time, a lot of space in your schedule. I also encourage people, if you're going to be taking a mixture of STEM and non-STEM classes, to really look at balancing those across the semesters so that each semester has a little bit of both. Some people find one type of class easier than another. And so if you keep things balanced for yourself, then you're not accidentally ending up with a semester where you happen to have a whole bunch of classes that are all in this, category that you find more challenging, whatever that category might be. And I think the final thing I'll say about managing course load is use your resources and supports early, even if you don't think that you need them or don't know whether or not you need them. Um, connect with faculty early on, connect with student peer advisors in courses, go to, academic resources like I don't know if you've heard of Plums yet, but many introductory STEM classes have a group tutoring system called Plums, stands for Peer-Led Undergraduate Mentoring System. And it's like group tutoring that happens a couple of times a week. Plums is great to go to just to be there, whether you know you need it or not, feel like you need it or not. So doing those things early. And like I said, also tackling hard things early so that you're building those skills, and connecting with resources so that if and when things do get really hard, you've already built that foundation for yourself. It's a good question that I can answer very quickly. Does the integrated course, I think you mean the biochem integrated 160, teach you the same amount of information as the separate classes, or is it less specific? It is the same. It is designed to be the same content. Yeah. Okay, wait, let me read this one. I was wondering if it happens that the Neuro 100 is full for the fall, is it recommended to take Chem 150 or Bio 145 in order to take Bio 200 in the spring for the neuro major? Okay, so Bio 200, you're seeing, unfortunately, not every website, including mine, has been thoroughly updated yet. Bio 200 is not taught anymore. That was one of, I mentioned that the biology department had some curriculum changes. That's one of the changes, is that course, the content of that course is now being taught in different ways in the biology curriculum. So that also means some shifts with majors that required that class, like biology, neuroscience, and biochemistry. Um, what I would say in answer to your question is if you're thinking that you might want to major in neuroscience, and Neuro 100 is full in the fall, um, I think taking Chem 150 is a great idea if you feel like that course is gonna work well for you. You could take Bio 145, but it's really not necessary, because um, it's not going to be required for the neuroscience major. And from a health profession perspective, that Neuro 100 plus more advanced biology classes will meet your requirements. That said, if you really want to be able to take a 200 level biology class in the spring, so not Bio 200, but a different 200 level class, and now that I read your question, maybe that was what you meant. But at any rate, then you probably would have to take Bio 145 in the fall. So that's sort of personal choice. But you don't, the 145 in that case would not count, if you will, for the neuro major, nor would it be needed for pre-health. It would be more a means to an end for getting into more advanced biology classes. Would sociology help with the pre-med track? Is it a humanities or a social science class? So I'm going to answer the second part of your question first. Humanities, generally, classes defined as humanities are going to be English, history, language, art, music, art history, philosophy, classics. There may be a couple more that I'm forgetting. Those are, off the top of my head. Social sciences are going to be sociology, psychology, anthropology, economics, right? Those are social sciences. So sociology is a social science class. It is a course that is generally not required by health profession schools in general. It could serve as a general social science class requirement for health profession schools. So whether it's a medical school or another health profession, if they say we require 3 or 4 credits in social sciences, sociology would certainly cover that because it is a social science. For pre-med specifically, since you asked, it is, there's some sociology content on the medical college admission test. I do find, generally speaking, that it's really not necessary to take introductory sociology for that particular purpose. So it's pretty flexible, I guess is what I would say in terms of whether or not someone might take that particular class. Another question on the integrated bio and chem class. Does it fill bio and chem prereqs for a major? Yes, in the same way that the other classes do. If we wanted to meet with you before course registration, did you say to email the general pre-health email or to email you directly? Either is okay. Either will ultimately get you what you need, but it would be better if you could email the general pre-health, the one that's on your screen right there, right now. That email will come to both me and Jackie. So it means that we're both going to see your requests. And since Jackie really manages the appointments, it's if you email me directly, I'm going to forward it to Jackie. So pre-health means that we both get it. Can we take classes at one of the 5 colleges during our first semester? No. In future semesters, you can. For those who aren't sure which health professions to go into, are there events or opportunities to help figure that out? Absolutely. So, there will be an event a couple weeks into the fall semester. I know I've mentioned it, but some people join late, so I'm just going to restate. A couple weeks into the fall semester, there's going to be an event. I won't say that that event is going to help you explore professions, but it is a great opportunity to get connected and learn about resources and opportunities. So that's one for sure. There will be other fall events that will also be related to exploration. Our website has a whole section on exploring health careers. So I definitely encourage you, if you want sort of online resources, things to read, videos to watch, that's a really good resource with a lot of different information that's there. We can talk career exploration in advising appointments, and then also, beyond other opportunities for career exploration as well. Not immediately, but well, potentially immediately. It depends on you and your personal circumstance, but ultimately connecting with people who are in professions that you're exploring is a really great way to get to know more about sort of what it feels like to be in that profession, why people chose the profession they chose, what their particular pathway looked like. Side note, as a subsection of that exploring careers section of our website, there's a section called alum stories, and there's 6 little videos there they're about 10 minutes long. They're pretty short. And it's alums talking about their careers, 6 different professions. Those were actually put together by a student who worked for us a few years ago. She did a really great job. So it's only 6 professions. It took a long time to put those together. But those are really fun to watch for some career exploration as well. It looks like I am going to get to all the questions actually. So I'm going to go back to, there's one that I skipped, but are there resources that will help us choose and apply for medical colleges? Yes. So for any health profession, including medicine, you do not have to choose schools now. Unless you're a transfer student and you're coming in as a junior, then we'll have a different conversation, right? But if you're a first year student, you do not need to choose schools now. There is one semi exception to that, which is if any of you are pre vet. Vet schools, the prerequisites can be challenging to plan out, I guess, because it just varies school by school. And it varies school by school for other professions too. But for vet schools in particular, it varies in such a way that unless you look at some specific schools early on, you might miss something critical that would be helpful for you to know with your class planning. So pre-vets, if you're out there, if you know of 1 or 2 vet schools that you're really excited about, look at those early, get to know what their prerequisites are, just so you can keep those in mind when you're planning. For all other professions, you don't have to really be looking at schools quite this early. Although the same general advice applies that if you have a favorite school, yeah, look at that one. It's a good idea to get to know that school or a couple of schools. Later on, when you are really needing to focus in on the schools that you're going to apply to, on our website, there's a whole section on applying there, and actually one of the very first things in that applying section is a whole bunch of information about selecting schools. There are resources from the different health profession schools themselves. There's some tips from us. There's some sort of third-party resources that are also helpful. So yes, there's quite a bit that's out there that can help you with selecting schools. But if at this point you are someone who wants to kind of get a sense of what the schools are that are out there, there are databases, and this is one of the links that's in that applying section about selecting schools. There are databases for the different professions where they list all their schools. And so you can go into their database and just get information about the schools. Most of them are free. There's a couple, the one for MD schools, the one for dental schools. Those two, I know you have to pay for their databases. You need a subscription. So I usually only recommend those for people who are actively applying at that time. All right, and here's my last question, and we're coming up on 12, so this is really good timing. But I will just mention if there's any final questions that you want to pop into the chat, now is the time to do that since we only have a couple minutes left. Okay, so here's this question. Someone who is interested in medicine wants to build a schedule that lets you succeed academically and avoid burnout. Great, great plan. I think that's a wonderful way to be starting off thinking about these things. What elective classes could I take that could essentially fulfill the pre-med track for the MCAT? And then what's the average, this is from the same person, what's the average course load in the first year? That I think I already talked about with those 16 credits. So 4 credit classes is what you want to be aiming for. But as far as elective classes, so elective is a tricky word because it depends on what you're talking about. Elective could be something for your major. It could be just a fun class that you're taking. It could be, but it could also be something that's like a pre-med prerequisite course, but not related to your major. So I'm going to sort of answer it in that third way. But if you need to clarify with your question, let me know. So it depends on what your major is. Here's what I can tell you really briefly. This will all be on the prerequisite courses page of our website, but for pre-med, and this is going to be similar for also podiatry, dentistry, pharmacy, veterinary medicine, those are all very similar in terms of prerequisite courses. Generally speaking, what we're going to advise is 4 biology classes, 4 chemistry classes, 2 physics classes, 1 biochemistry, 2 English, 1 math, 1 stats, usually at least 1 social science, and that's everything. And then we recommend medical ethics. It's required for some professions. It's not required for medicine. But that's kind of the rundown of what the classes are. So if we're talking about fulfilling the pre-med track, it would be any of those classes. Okay. So, final couple questions that came in. Do medical colleges give merit-based scholarships? Yes. I would say not as frequently as undergraduate, though. So just FYI. But yes, they do still exist at the health profession and graduate level. You said you can go to med school with any major. Is it better to major in science, though? No, not from an admission perspective. And in fact, it's when you are sitting in admissions at a medical or other health profession school, one of the things that you're looking at is sort of people coming into your program who are going to be able to bring a variety of different perspectives, who are going to be able to think through problems in a variety of different ways, and different academic backgrounds, strengths in academic backgrounds are a bonus in terms of that. We need people in the health professions who really understand the humanities and the social sciences because those are also important elements of health and wellness and treating human beings and animals where you're interacting with human beings also, right? So no, from an admissions perspective, there is no major that's better than another major. Another person commented that it's easier to fulfill your prerequisites that way, and I would say that yes, that is largely true, although I will also say if we have a major like neuroscience, which is very, it's a STEM major, it's very credit heavy and lab heavy, and it only overlaps somewhat with the prerequisites for health professions school. And so combining neuroscience with something like pre-med, which a lot of people do, and I'm not steering anyone away from that, it's very common, but combining that means you actually kind of explode your number of lab classes and the planning can get very complicated. Whereas if you're majoring in something that doesn't overlap at all, like Spanish, for example, you're actually, then you only have the lab classes that are in the prerequisite courses for health profession school. And in some ways, then planning that out is a little bit simpler. So, but it's very individualized. It's all good. Like it's, all of these different combinations of majors and health professions are equally viable. But I would say, again, one to one, let's have conversations about what your interests are. And with that, that brings us to exactly noon. So I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you all so much for being here. I love your questions. These were fantastic. I'm really looking forward to connecting with you either over email next week with appointments if you would like to do that, and definitely in the fall in person. And for those of you who just recently graduated or are about to graduate from high school, congratulations. Super exciting. And I'll see everybody in the fall. Have a great summer.